Good evening. Tonight's public information forum will include an introduction of the Pahrump Field Office Manager, Nicholas Pay, followed by introductions of the participants in KP Environmental, BLM's third-party contractor facilitating tonight's session. After introductions, I will provide a short overview of the BLM renewable energy application evaluation and variance processes, present on the proposed Rock Valley Energy Center project, followed by a question and answer session. Following the question and answer session, we will open up the forum for public input. Then we will close out for the evening. This meeting will be recorded and the video will be posted on the project information webpage at the address on the screen. We will also post that address in the chat. Now we will turn it over to Nicholas Pay, Pahrump Field Office Manager, for a short introduction and an overview of our presenters and other participants for this evening's public information forum.
Good evening, everyone. Appreciate everyone taking their time on a Thursday evening to be here with us for this opportunity to hear from each of you. My name is Nicholas Pay. I am the field manager for the Pahrump Field Office, and I am excited to be here. It's been a long road to get to where we are with this Rock Valley Energy Center. So I'm excited to be able to talk about it a little more tonight. With that, tonight you're also going to hear from Whitney Worthland, who's the BLM's project manager. And you've already heard from Elizabeth, who's helping with us with KP Environmental. Also behind the scenes, you'll see a list of folks that are there that will be helping us answer your questions this evening. So with that, I will turn it back over to Elizabeth.
Thank you, Nicholas. Tonight's forum will provide opportunities for questions and public input. There will be a question and answer session where written questions can be submitted. There will also be an opportunity for verbal public input towards the end of the information forum. We'll have more information on these two opportunities later in the presentation. The BLM is also providing opportunity after the information forum for public input and questions until November 29th, 2024. Input and questions can be submitted via email to the email address on the screen or via mail to the BLM Southern Nevada District Office. We will also provide this information in the chat for this forum. Please note that before including your address, phone number, email address, or other personal identifying information in your comment, you should be aware that your entire comment, including your personal identifying information, may be publicly available at any time. While that you can ask for your personal identifying information be withheld from public review, BLM cannot guarantee that they'll be able to do so. Anonymity is not allowed for submissions from organizations or businesses and from individuals identifying themselves as representatives or officials of organizations or businesses. Next, I'll present an overview on the BLM solar application evaluation and variance process and the Rock Valley Energy Center project. In 2012, the BLM and Department of Energy issued the final programmatic environmental impact statement for solar energy development in 6 southwestern states. This document provided information to improve efficiency and created processes to standardize the review of solar applications in a more environmentally responsible manner. The solar PEIS designated solar energy zones that are suited for utility scale production of solar energy. Outside the established solar energy zones are variance areas. Applications within variance areas are considered on a case-by-case basis, based on environmental consideration and coordination with federal, state, and local government agencies, tribes, and public input. Solar development in variance areas is subject to the BLM variance process, which is separate from and comes before the NEPA process. The Rock Valley Energy Center project is located in a variance area and is subject to the variance process. The variance process is part of the application evaluation process described in the BLM right-of-way regulations. The variance process focuses on collection and evaluation of resource data with input from the public, tribes, and federal, state, and local governments. This input and evaluation of data helps BLM to assess the appropriateness of the solar proposal. Tonight's public information form and the public input period that lasts until November 29th, 2024, provides you an opportunity to have input on the Rock Valley Energy Center project. The information gathered during the public input period will inform the application, evaluation, and variance process, including the BLM determination on whether to continue to process or to deny the right-of-way application. The BLM is currently in the early stages of processing the Rock Valley Energy Center project application. After the public information forms have concluded, BLM will continue to gather public input on the project until November 29th, 2024. The information the BLM gathers, including input from the public, agencies, and tribes, will be presented to the BLM State Director, who will, with concurrence from the BLM Director, make the determination on whether the project will move forward to the NEPA process. The determination on this project is anticipated to be in the spring of 2025. Helpful public input at this point would include potential local concerns, barriers, and/or opportunities related to the proposed project. Input about types of use or resource concerns within the proposed area, like recreational activities and opportunities, wildlife, vegetation, visual resources, and other factors would also be helpful at this time. Information related to the variance factors for the project is found on the link provided on the screen. The map on this screen shows the Rock Valley Energy Center project as outlined in green, and the proposed generation tie-in system, or GenTie, in blue. Boulevard Associates LLC, a subsidiary of Next Era Energy Resources LLC, has submitted a right-of-way application for the Rock Valley Energy Center project. The right-of-way request is to utilize public land in Nye County for the construction, operation, and eventual decommissioning of a proposed solar facility and interconnection to the regional transmission system. The proposed project is a 1,600 megawatt photovoltaic solar facility with battery storage, an on-site substation located on approximately 10,105.5 acres of BLM administered land located in southern Nye County, Nevada, approximately 0.9 miles southwest of the intersection of US Route 95 and West State Route 373. The map on the screen shows the Rock Valley Energy Center in green near the Nevada-California border. Two of the proposed GenTies runs northwest of the project, parallel with State Route 95 to both the proposed Betty substation and the proposed Amargosa substation, shown as the blue boxes towards the top left and middle of the map. The third proposed GenTie runs southeast of the project to the proposed Valley switchyard, shown as the blue box towards the bottom right of the map. The red arrows show the location of the substation and the proposed site boundary in relation to State Route 95. The applicant is evaluating three potential GenTie alternatives for interconnection: a 22.5 mile, 230 kilovolt GenTie to the proposed Betty substation, an 8.5 mile, 500 kilovolt GenTie to the proposed Amargosa substation, and/or a 4.2 mile, 230 kilovolt GenTie to the proposed Valley switchyard. The generation and storage facility, approximately 10,101.5 acres, and the 3 Gentile alternatives, together approximately 525.8 acres outside the proposed site boundary, are proposed for siting within federal public land administered by the BLM, Southern Nevada District Office, Pahrump Field Office. The northwestern end of the Gentile alternative to the proposed Betty substation also extends to the public land administered by the BLM, Battle Mountain District Office, Tonopah Field Office. The flow chart on this screen shows the application evaluation process, which begins with the submittal of a solar project application. The application is then prioritized based on the regulations and involves interdisciplinary team review. This helps the BLM prioritize and process the solar application workload more efficiently. After prioritization, the BLM reviews where they fit within the district work plan based on their priority level, and once work starts on the application, the BLM initiates the solar application evaluation process. This includes the variance process discussed earlier. The application evaluation and the variance process involves public information forms, agency, and tribal coordination. When the evaluation is complete, the BLM will determine whether to continue to process the application. If the BLM determines to continue processing, that is when the National Environmental Policy Act environmental review process, including analysis and public involvement, would initiate. These public forums for the Rock Valley Energy Center project are part of the early stages of the renewable energy project application evaluation process. Now we are going to get to the question and answer session for the Rock Valley Energy Center project. To ask a question, click on the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Type in your question and click on send. The BLM will answer your question live or in the Q&A feature. If you can give us just a few minutes, we're going to start queuing up the questions and we'll get started shortly. We will take as many questions as we can during the Q&A session. If you still have questions about the Rock Valley Energy Center, when we close the Q&A session, you can submit your questions and we will respond in the Q&A feature, or you can submit your questions to the email provided in the chat. Okay, the first question that's come in this evening is what volume of groundwater is proposed for the life of this project? Has a water source been identified for proposed water needs for this project?
So the applicant has estimated up to 420 acre feet of water per year would be needed for construction. That's in order to support site preparation, grading, and other dust suppression needs. The applicant has also secured water rights, an option for water rights to lease acre feet per year for groundwater in the basin 230, the Amargosa Desert. Water would be trucked from site from the existing point of diversion, which is approximately 5 miles from the project, and then stored in above ground tanks with a capacity of up to 250,000 gallons.
Thank you. Just want to remind folks as we're sorting through the questions here and preparing our responses, we want to remind you to put your questions in the Q&A feature and to look for responses in the Q&A feature. The BLM will be providing live responses to some questions and written responses to others. So please check the Q&A feature for responses as well. Thank you. Okay, the next question is, how will this project affect sand transport to Big Dune?
So there will be a sand transport study conducted in this area. When the BLM completed baseline needs assessment for the project, we identified that as a survey or study that would be needed for baseline.
I just want to let everybody know we may be pausing as questions are coming in and we're formulating responses. Thank you for your patience, but we really appreciate your time and your input during this process. Okay, we have another question. Have rare tarantula surveys been undertaken here? Rare plant surveys and tortoise surveys?
So when the BLM completed a baseline needs assessment for the project area, we identified the need for invertebrate surveys, botanical surveys, and desert tortoise surveys for the project area. Those surveys have been conducted. BLM is waiting to receive the reports of those and would review and publish them as necessary.
As we're queuing up the next response, I want to remind folks that the website is listed in the bottom of the screen. And in the chat feature, there are some links that we have discussed in this presentation for folks to have as a resource. Okay, we have a follow-up question on the water resource. When will the specific water source or permits be identified?
The applicant has secured a water rights option to lease 500 acre-feet per year of groundwater from Basin 230. The Nevada Division of Water Resources is responsible for the allocation of water resources within the state of Nevada. If the project does receive a favorable application evaluation or variance determination, the BLM would consider impacts from water use during the NEPA process, and the applicant would be responsible for securing those needed permits through the Nevada Division of Water Resources.
Okay, we have another question. Presuming the 3 proposed substations are along Greenlink West, which have the most probability of being built?
So the BLM does not have information on construction timing for the Greenlink West project at this time. However, the Rock Valley project is in the early stages of evaluation. If a favorable variance determination is made, that project would submit more detailed information about their interconnection.
We still have questions coming in the Q&A function and still have time for questions. I want to take a moment to remind everyone we will have our verbal input section after the question and answer session here. And also want to remind folks to check the Q&A feature to look for responses to questions that have been submitted. Okay, the next question we have is, what priority level have you assigned this project?
Yeah,
So in response to the high level of interest in solar development in this area, and there were several overlapping applications, the BLM worked with our partners, including the Amargosa Town Board and Nye County, to offer this area as part of a competitive offering for the right to apply for a photovoltaic solar facility. Because of this process, BLM is treating this project as a high priority for processing.
We still see questions coming in. Just want to thank everybody for their participation this evening as we queue up our next response. Okay, the next question we have is, will groundwater drawdown impact Devil's Hole and Ash Meadows? What is the proposed mitigation?
So the BLM is still in the early stages for this project. Currently, we are in the variance review process and looking for input on that. If a favorable variance determination is made, the BLM would evaluate issues to look at potential impacts from the project in the National Environmental Policy Act or NEPA process. Looking at impacts could also include mitigation that would further reduce those impacts if warranted.
Okay, our next question that we have here is, the area is near or in 40-mile wash, which during a past major rainstorm flooded to almost 100 feet wide. What surface hydrology features are proposed?
So during project development and planning for the project, the applicant would develop appropriate designs to address stormwater controls. Additionally, when the BLM completed the baseline needs for this project, we identified the need for a survey for drainage features or surface water features within the project site. Utilizing that information from those reports, as well as the design features from the applicant and also the BLM or other agencies, if the project were to proceed and receive a favorable variance determination and would move into the National Environmental Policy Act process, we would look at all of those, all that information gathered from the drainage report, as well as any design features that would be needed for surface flow control in the analysis for this project.
All right. Our next question we received is, how close does this project come to the historic Tonopah and Tidewater Railroad grade? How about the Las Vegas Goldfield Railroad?
So as part of the baseline needs assessment, the applicant is required to complete a cultural resources inventory of the project area. The BLM recently authorized this survey, and those will be taking place over the next few months. That information on the results of that will be better available once the inventory is complete.
Okay, the next question we have here is, where would the entrance to the project be, off what road? 373, 95.
The project proposes to use both US Highway 95 and State Route 373 as primary transportation access to the project. As part of the baseline needs assessment, the BLM identified the need for the applicant to complete a traffic study, as well as requirements that would be needed from the Nevada Department of Transportation for that study as well.
Okay, the next question we have here is, how many or what percentage of those affected parties have expressed a favorable response to these ever expanding solar projects?
So the BLM takes into consideration public input throughout not only this variance input period, but also other public participation processes in the National Environmental Policy Act process. However, the BLM does not have a tally of positive and negative responses for all solar projects, as BLM addresses projects on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, I just want to remind everyone to be using the Q&A feature to type your questions and look for your responses to your questions in the feature as well. Again, we're responding to some questions live and some in the Q&A feature. Okay, the next question we have is, have you been in contact with businesses at Lathrop Wells to see what they think of this industrial project so close to that community?
So the BLM did do outreach with both Nye County and the town of Amargosa to establish setbacks from these businesses for the project. We're in the preliminary stages of review of this proposed project, and BLM would continue to welcome input from the community of Lathrop Wells during this variance process on potential impacts.
As we're queuing up the next response, just want to remind folks that the public input period goes until November 29th. Okay. We have our next question. Why does BLM ask for public input if the responses are not tallied?
So more information on the public input that we have received on other solar projects proposed within the Southern Nevada District Office can be found on the BLM's National NEPA Register webpage for those projects. Those web pages include not only the comments and input that we received themselves, but also shows how BLM considers those comments during the process for both the variance or application evaluation and also the National Environmental Policy Act process. We can provide more information on the National NEPA Register, including a website, in the chat.
Okay, the next question we have is any part of the airstrip included in this project?
A portion of this project does overlap with the airstrip located west of Lathrop Wells.
Okay, thank you for everyone for your questions. Next, we will move on to the verbal input section. If you still have questions, you can continue to submit them and we will respond to them in writing in the Q&A feature, or you can submit your questions via the website or email them to the email address provided. Okay, so now we're going to start with the public verbal input section for the evening. We will start with those who have pre-registered to provide input. Once you hear your name called, you will use the raise the hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. Once we have provided an opportunity for those who have pre-registered to provide input, we will open it up to others who would like to provide input but did not pre-register. The facilitator will see your hand raised and open up your microphone. If you are on the phone, you can raise your hand with *9 and then unmute and mute using *6. You will see a timer on the next slide displaying the amount of time you have. We are reserving 2 minutes per public input comment. If time permits, we will accept additional comments after all the people that have not commented had a chance. Please remember, we will not be responding to questions. Any questions you want responded to, please use the Q&A feature and we will try to get as many responded to in the Q&A feature as we can. You can also submit via email or on the website. The BLM wants to hear from all members of the public. However, out of respect for everyone's participation and input, we ask you adhere to the following guidelines. Stay within your allotted time so that everyone can speak. Please be respectful of others that are speaking and refrain from profanity. If these guidelines are not followed, your microphone will be muted and we will move on to the next person. Okay, so the first person that we have pre-registered to speak is Mason Bull. Mason, if you're on the call, if you can raise your hand.
I don't see Mason here. Move to the
Okay.
next.
Okay, the next person we have pre-registered is Cameron Mayer. Cameron, if you're on the phone, please raise your hand. And to remind folks, the raise your hand feature is at the bottom of the screen.
Do not see Cameron.
Okay. Let's move on to Heather Gang. Heather, if you're on the phone, please raise your hand.
Okay, Heather, you can unmute and start your statement.
Hi, the first thing I'd like to say is I'm a member of a group that enjoys hiking along the historic railroad grades in the Mojave Desert, and there's actually a pretty big community of historic railroad of the Mojave enthusiasts, and there's been books written about these railroads, and so I think they're pretty significant trails historically, and people do hike on them. And this comes really close to the Las Vegas Goldfield, if not overlapping it, I'm not sure. The other thing I'm worried about is the sand transport and the flooding issue on the two major washes. I think the two washes are probably major sources of sand for Big Dune. So if you start controlling flooding on the washes, I think you've got, twin problems that are going to affect each other, and it's going to be a pretty complex analysis. And you may not think a chain link fence would stop sand, but I have seen many chain link fences with sand dunes piled up against them. I don't know how it happens, but it does. And the third major concern I have is that this is in the watershed of the Amargosa River, and you're going to allow them to spray herbicides, and then the floods will come through, and all the herbicide residues and whatever else they're spraying around there is going to go right into the Amargosa River drainage. So that's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment and thank you for staying within the time allotted. Okay, the next pre-registered participant we have is Laura Pauling. Laura, if you're on the call, please raise your hand.
I do not see Laura in attendance.
Okay, we'll move on. The next person is Kevin Emmerich. Kevin, if you're on the call, please raise your hand.
I do not see Kevin here today.
Okay. Carolyn Allen, if you're on the call.
Okay, Carolyn, you should be able to unmute and speak.
Thank you. Yes, we've had the spike in valley fever in our animals, specifically dogs more than anything, and in humans. And the doctors are starting to notice this. And this is one of the things that we are concerned with. I know BLM has gone to great lengths because we've worked with them before on another project, that they're not allowing scraping of the lands, but the disturbance of these millions of years of undisturbed land, it's going to pick up even more. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, we'll move on to Heather Freeman. Heather, if you're on the call, can you please raise your hand?
I do not see Heather today.
Okay. We'll move on to Deborah Dupuy. If you're on the call, the raise your hand feature is at the bottom of the screen.
Deborah is not here.
Okay. We'll move on to Mason Harvey. Mason, if you're on the call.
Mason is not here.
Okay. We've got Richard Treader. Richard, if you're on the call, please raise your hand.
Go ahead, Richard, you may speak. Richard, I see that you're unmuted, but I don't hear you. Okay, Richard, it seems that we might be having a microphone problem with you. We can come back to you in just a minute. So I think we just have one or two more registered and we'll come back to you, Richard, okay?
Okay. Laura Cunningham, if you're on the call, can you please raise your hand?
Go ahead, Laura, you can unmute and speak.
Hello, Laura Cunningham, Basin Range Watch in Beatty. And I'd like to say the prioritization process seems to bias in favor of the solar applicants because you've made this a high priority project before you have a lot of the surveys analyzed and published and made public. I know there are endemic tarantulas and other invertebrates in that area. I've seen them. There are a lot of burrowing owls, desert kit foxes, huge wildflower displays, and the area has a lot of rare plants that are just no one has looked for before. But I'm detecting this process, you're just jumping ahead, and instead of taking all the resources into consideration, including recreation and impacts to Lathrop Wells, which is going to be right next to this huge project, you've sort of just favored the solar developers and said, okay, we're just going to go forward and make it high priority. And we're going to defer all of this important analysis into NEPA. And we already know that when it gets into the NEPA, it usually gets approved. So we will be sending in extensive written comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So it looks like Richard may have dropped off. Maybe he's going to try to dial back in, but we can open it up to people who did not pre-register who would like to make a comment at this time. You could go ahead and raise your hand. Also, if anyone who has already spoken would like to speak again, you may do so at this time. Just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. So we're not seeing anybody at this time raising their hands. We are going to be here for the duration of the scheduled time for this call. So we will just be hanging on. If Richard comes back on and he wants to speak, we will look for him. But if anyone else decides they want to talk, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll get you unmuted.
Just want to remind folks that the public comment period is open until November 29th, and we'll be accepting comments until that time. You can submit comments and questions via email or the web address that have been provided in the chat. Okay, we're not seeing any other hands being raised at this time. We're going to go ahead and close out the meeting. I want to thank everybody for joining and taking your valuable time to join us this evening. We will take all comments seriously and understand the importance of this process. I will turn it over to Nicholas for a final closeout.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for being here this evening. Lots of really good questions, really good comments. We look forward to incorporating those into our decision-making process as we move forward with this project. Any additional information that you may have that you feel that we should take into account, please make sure that you get that submitted and that input provided to the ways on the screen, and we can move forward from there. Again, we look forward to working with you more as this project progresses, and we will hope you have a good evening. I will also note that we will be here till 8 o'clock this evening. So if anybody else decides that they do want to make another comment, we will be around.
This concludes our meeting. Thank you.